Welcome to Coddiwompling Along The Tao with Noel Eastwood, and this is episode 4. And today I'm going to talk about the magician. And like before, I want to go back and explore where the imagery came from. Before I do, I'll just grab that picture here. Here we go. There we go. There's magician from the Waite, Rider, Coleman Smith deck. But first of all, the word magician is in Roman is Mercury. So Mercury is the magician. In Greek, it's Hermes. And in ancient Egypt, it's Thoth, Thoth. Thoth was made famous by Aleister Crowley, the magician of the 1920s and 30s. Like Arthur Edward Waite, he came out of that period of the Golden Dawn, 1887 to 1903, which actually cemented these 4 tools. If it wasn't for the Hermetical Order of the Golden Dawn and Waite and Crowley, we wouldn't have 4 tools. We would have maybe a dozen. Wicca has lots and lots of tools. Magic, Western magic, these days is boiled down to these basic ones. Okay, so let me just get this one up. Pull that one apart. So Greek. So here we go. Oh yeah, you can't actually see the sword in this picture over here because my big fat head's in the way. Here we go, mate. Oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah. So Mercury is a magician, Hermes is a magician, and Thoth is a magician. Thoth is the god, the Egyptian god that invented everything. He invented magic. He invented writing, he invented words, he invented how to cook a shepherd's pie. He invented everything, you name it, he's the inventor of it, apparently. But what he did was give us the model of the magician, the model that we still have today. The word magica comes from Latin. And remember, Latin in English, where did that come from? From the Romans. They invaded Great Britain in about 42 BC, and not only did they bring their roads and their aqueducts and their baths and their violence and aggression, they also brought their language. So we have a lot of words in English that are from Latin, from French, from the Normans. When they invaded with their old French, we've got words from Gaelic, which is the Gauls invaded in 500 AD. We've got Celt. We've got a few words left from the original Celts, not many though. We have words from the Old Norse, from the Vikings and the Danes coming down from right around 700 AD to about I think the last invasion from the Vikings was 1066, when Harold was defeated at Hastings by King William I of the Norman kings. And when William came in and beat up the English and defeated Harold, they took over the entire country. They just stripped the properties off everybody, and all the British became their servants, their serfs. They would not allow anyone to speak anything but French, Old French. The peasants spoke English, but the courts, the law, royalty, the couriers, everything was in French. So we have a lot of beef, fowl, pork, all of these words we have are French. The word magic is English. The word magus, and I've got this written down because I knew I'd forget to put it in. Magus is Latin. Mage is Middle English. So we have a bit of a blend of origins there. Okay, let's look at the Pentacle. The Pentacle the word Pentacle was first written in English that they can find in 1561, and it was about a talisman. So the Pentacle, and we're going back 1,000, 2,000 years, maybe even longer, no doubt longer, of course it'll be much longer, but people wore these sacred items on their body, like a bone of a saint, or a gemstone, or shapes, magical shapes, to ward off evil and to draw good luck. So they were talismans, like a lucky charm, like a 5-leaf clover, those sort of things. I remember when I was in primary school, some of my friends they were Roman Catholics, they had paper charms around their neck of pictures of the saints, and they had cards of the saints, the Roman Catholic saints. I didn't, because I wasn't Roman Catholic. So we have magical shapes, and the Pentacle in particular, because the Keys of Solomon, written a long time ago, had a pentacle on it, and we use shapes in magic because they represent something. So you draw a circle around yourself and there's your protection. It's going to keep the werewolves out or the vampires out or something. Okay, so shapes was symbolic of certain properties. Squares have properties. Triangles have properties. In astrology, we have the same shapes. We have what is called a grand cross or a grand square. We have a grand trine. We have a mystic rectangle, and these have qualities and properties that are special in some way. So the Pentacle is representative of good luck charm, so usually for physical protection. Let's go to the sword. The sword, well, we're talking about a dagger actually in magic. Everybody had a knife. We go back 1400s, which is the origin of the tarot, and if you didn't have a knife, how are you going to cut that maggot out of your apple? Going to poke it with your finger? No. You'd use chopsticks? No. You had a knife. The knife is a Swiss Army knife of today. It did everything. You want to cut bread, you want to cut something, you always carried your knife. We have the knights of old and the samurai swordsmen that gave their swords names, and those names would evoke or invoke traits of courage and protection and valor from whoever they've named it from. You look at Lord of the Rings, and Gandalf had a magical sword. So did Aragorn, and even Frodo had Sting. So they gave their swords or their weapons labels and names to evoke certain magical qualities. So it'd be natural that the Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn, which is where these are basically formed as standards for magic from that order, that's where it comes from. The cup. The cup is a chalice, look at that. And that evokes straight away the Holy Grail, the chalice that collected Jesus' blood. But again, we go back thousands of years, and even in the Bible, people sacrificed to the gods. They'd take someone's goat and cut its throat, and the blood was the sacrifice. So the blood on the altar was a sacrifice to the gods to appease them, so that they would make sure that their crops didn't get locusts, so that it rained, so that the cows wouldn't dry up. Okay, so that there was fertility. That changed because eventually you kill all your goats, you've got no more goats left. You can't do that. Today, sure, we have so many. The livestock, if we weighed all the livestock on the planet today, including chickens and turkeys and goats and sheep and cows, makes up for 67% of the weight of all mammals on the planet. 67% is astronomical. Humans, if we weighed all the humans, that makes up for 30%. How much is left for wild animals? Is 3%. Makes you think, doesn't it? What are we doing? So, because you keep on killing your animals from, the 1400s, you'll run out of animals. And your wife will be really angry at you because there's no more. No more milk, no more cheese, all the things that we can do. No more urine. Urine is a very important property. No more cow poo, which is what you put on your floor. It turns like concrete. So what they did, if you look at the Greeks and the Romans in particular, they would celebrate by drinking wine. And, a group of blokes and their wives would get together, have dinner, and they would drink wine. But what they would do is they would dip their fingers in and sprinkle the wine onto the floor or onto the dirt. And that was like a sacrifice to the gods. That's your libation. You're giving a libation to the gods. Cheers to whichever god it was that was your household god, and you'd have your drink. We have that today in communion with the church. You go and have your piece of bread, which is the body of Christ, and your wine, a sip of wine, which is the blood of Christ. So the cup evokes communion and appeasement. The wand. Now, this is interesting because I'm writing the wands book now, number 5, the last one, and the wand is not a little twig. It's not a Harry Potter wand. Remember, the Fool's Journey is about the wanderer who goes from village to village or from place to place, but it's dangerous. Back in the Middle Ages, and sometimes today, if you go to places unknown, there's a good chance someone's going to come and hit you on the head and take your property. Might even kill you. There's a really good chance you go into the village and the village dogs will attack you. If there were wolves or bears or tigers, a stout stick or a staff is what you want. And that's what they carried. The pilgrims who travelled for their religious pilgrimages carried staffs for that very, very purpose, for protection. But also you can lean on it. You can also put a bundle of food and clothing in a blanket, tie it onto your stick and throw it over your shoulder. It makes it easier to walk with. And if anything happens, you just slip it straight out and whack that bad guy on the head. So a wand was a staff. But because the Golden Dawn formalised it as a... Well, we go back here. It's not actually... he's this... Uh-oh. Here we go. I'll sort this out in a second. Here we go. That might be a wand there, but this is what I'm talking about. That's the wand which is in the wands book, which is a staff. Now, I did some work, some therapy with a fellow who did those ancient enactments, and the group that he belonged to did battle enactments of the Vikings, and he was a spearman. But you're not allowed to have too many spearmen in your group to fight the other group, someone from another village or another town, because the spearman would always win. The spearman always defeated a swordsman. Why? Because you had a greater reach. A staff is always about 6 inches taller than you are. A spear is a little bit longer with the sharp point. And so if you're fighting someone with a spear, not only do you have the reach to poke him in the eye, but you can stab him in the knee or in the foot. 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, wasn't common to have metal armour. If you're lucky, you had leather boiled in oil which hardened it. But you can imagine you're in a bunch of blokes pushing against each other, which is what they did during the Greek era, is they had the phalanx where they'd bump into each other and the two armies would just push and they'd stab each other in the foot. There's a foot poke through there, whack into it. And of course, that would break bones and that person is out of it. They're going to then get trampled on and they called them lizard stickers. So they'd have a javelin, which had a point on one end and a spear blade on the other end. So a wand is a critical implement in the medieval times. So there we have, and I've actually got 15 minutes, first time ever. So here we have the 4 implements. That's possibly a wand. We'd have to look into that. You can probably do your own meditation to determine what it is. You can go and talk to your magician. But the magician's role was to manifest from his skill and his talents and his training into the real world. I've just gone over it. I was at the markets this morning and I saw a magician. This guy made bubbles. He didn't make piddly little bubbles. He made these massive balloon bubbles that just went like big sausages and different shapes. And he entertained the crowd, or the kids, while we were having our coffee and something to eat. That is a magician. A magician would be someone in the Middle Ages who had a talent for doing magic, and they really enjoyed it. So they could do card tricks, when there was cardboard of course, but they could do tricks with making things appear and disappear, and the pea in the cup, which cup is the pea under. They were jugglers, and in terms of what I saw today, they were bubble makers. So magicians had a place in the hierarchy that we see in the tarot as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you with the next one.